Terah, we're going to learn a little bit about your journey. And so we're going to start there and would love to kind of hear like, how did you get into this place and tell us about what kind of drives you? What is the thing that makes this fun for you to get up and be out here?
Well, I would say it's not my organization, but it's our organization since we are essential at working in the community for sure. Um, Hi, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor, a privilege to be here sharing our work. I come to this work personally with lived experience, having served a life sentence inside of the world's largest women's prison facility from the ages of 18 to my mid 30s. So I was sent away with a life sentence. And while I was inside of prison, not only was I having to go through sort of a healing journey myself, but once I stopped and I looked around in this prison setting with 4,000 women who were mothers, sisters, daughters, friends, I recognized that there was such this sea of brokenness. Women and people really just trying to heal from their past mistakes, their poor choices, and really learn how to lead a life without crime. But there was not a lot of programs inside. And so I was like, what if? What if we just started creating some rehabilitative programs? So I began working closely with the warden and other administrative staff, and we introduced some of the greatest, proudest programs that are still in existence to today. And that was when I saw sort of my own purpose. My purpose is to build, bring solutions, and launch, implement things that help people just become the best versions of themselves. And so that's how I come to this work.
Okay, but you were recognized and you're obviously here, so you're still not serving a life sentence. So tell us about that process. How did you go from there to here?
In 2017, I was released. I went before the Board of Parole hearings, which is a very big interview of your life. Literally, you have to go and the commissioners who is appointed by the governor assess if you are suitable to be released. I was found suitable and I came home in November of 2017 after serving 15 years, 3 months, and 8 days. So I was really excited. I went straight to the transitional housing provider off of Treasure Island. So I was really excited and intoxicated with this sense of freedom. And it wasn't long before my thinking hat came on and I looked at the system in and of itself and I said, oh my God, we could do so much better. The lack of supportive services, the lack of continuum of care, the lack of care coordination with other service providers was just not really setting people up to reintegrate successfully back into prison. I mean, back into society. We don't want to back into prison.
Tell me a little about the Treasure Island experience, because that sounds like a Disney experience to go to Treasure Island, right? What was that experience for you?
Well, I'll say that a lot of our reentry service providers are actually residential treatment facilities, and then they add a component of reentry so that they can accept people coming home from prison. But for my personal experience, this was more of a extension of prison. In fact, I was able to see my parents more when I was incarcerated than when I was out in the community. So there was a lot of restrictions, a lot of blackout periods, a lot of limitations on where I can travel, et cetera. And this wasn't really situated to help people connect back to the community. I had a job offer I wasn't able to take. I couldn't work for 3 months. And things along those lines just showed that there was some more work we needed to do when it came to building out reentry solutions.
So then you ran into an organization called CROP. Tell us about CROP.
Creating Restorative Opportunities and Programs. It's an organization that was founded by our founders when they were incarcerated in 2009. They really wanted to create this 501c3 to introduce sports equipment and musical instruments inside of the prison in Solano. And what they found was that there was more work that they could do in prison while they were incarcerated themselves, and began sort of doing a lot of work around AOD counseling training and leadership for life, personal leadership development training. And then all of them, 4 of them came home within 1 year period during COVID in 2020. And they really said, let's get to work. This is what we do. Let's go back inside a prison. But COVID had another sort of idea of what they were supposed to do. They looked at the reentry landscape that they were experiencing themselves and found exactly what I was personally experiencing, which was that the reentry system is incredibly siloed. Siloed, what does that mean? Well, it means that if a person comes home from prison, they have to go to 10 to 15 different service providers just to get their needs met, from transportation, clothing, housing, etc. So we find that our recidivism rates are so high because of that gap. And that was something they early on identified and came up with the idea and the model to create something that's very holistic in nature, meaning it's covering every basic need that someone needs in order to successfully reintegrate. They pitched that to the state legislator and the governor. They loved it and allowed us to secure a $27 million investment into our pilot program. I came on as the executive director implementing this program. I was like, absolutely, I will marry you. You don't even have to get down on one knee, because it was fully in alignment with what I wanted to see in the reentry space. And we were able to secure our wonderful career campus in West Oakland and open up our doors and launch programs at the top of 2023.
Nice. And you do have members of your team here today.
I have a super club with me. Behind you, you will see Alexis Bustos, who is our Director of Learning and Partnerships. You see Julia Root, who's our Development Director. You have Maddie, who is one of our incredible consultants, Rima Chaudhry, who is our Senior Director of Programs as well. And we have a special guest, Donnie, who you'll hear from a little bit later, one of our fellows. This is the powerhouse of individuals who invest their time, their energy, their heart into making sure our community is safer and thriving.
And how big is the organization today?
Right now, we have about 30 people on staff.
Wow, so about a third of your group is missing. Nice.
They're busy for sure.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
So give us an idea where you guys are serving right now. Are all of these San Francisco, Oakland?
Yeah, so our flagship is in Oakland. We serve pretty much the entire San Francisco Bay Area, just given the way that parole works. We also have a Los Angeles satellite office, and that allows us to serve a population that has been sort of out in the community for a much longer time, but wants a career versus just a job.
That's very cool. Guys, thank you for coming up here. That's pretty amazing. Okay, so now you're going to tell me a little bit about the community you serve. So tell me about this community. Why is it a passion for you? What is it you'd like to see out of the group? I know we've got some slides here, so I'm going to give you this for the next few slides.
Yeah, so let's talk about the reentry space. And let's also take it back. There's a lot of direct links to why incarceration happens in the first place. But without getting into those statistics, I'll tell you right now that no one goes to prison as their healthiest self, right? I'll put it that way because what needs to take place inside of prison and beyond is more supportive services so that people are able to actually implement leading a life without crime, not going back to criminal thinking. And right now, our reentry system is completely broken. We have made some incredible strides, even since I've been home, but there's a lot more work to do, and it's going to take a community effort. A criminal justice problem is not always going to require a criminal justice solution. We see it as a workforce issue. We see it as a homelessness issue. We have a 54% recidivism rate, which is incredibly high. We're talking 35,000 people coming home per year in the state of California. And you're telling me 54% of those people will go back to prison? That's just not a comfortable number, I think, that we should be settling in on. If you're coming home from prison, you're 10 times more likely to be homeless. This is incredibly stark. And we talk about the homeless population, the unhoused population, 75% of individuals that are unhoused have a criminal record. So there's a direct correlate to why people are not getting into secured housing upon their release from prison. And we talk about the connection to unemployment. 1 in 3 individuals being released will be unemployed. And so that's a 27% average of unemployment rate. I don't know where all these numbers come from. It's like there's like a little chalkboard in my brain and I'm just like pulling them because I remember them. But this is something that we definitely take serious and we need to address.
So I know you got more slides, but this idea of doing nothing or not doing this actually creates a spillover effect into other issues that we're trying to resolve. But we really can't resolve some of those issues until we stop the bleeding that is pouring into those symptoms we see in our city. Our unemployment rate is very high. The homelessness presence in our community is very high, right? And we see a lot of reoccurring issues. By doing nothing, we're just creating that system where we take a percentage of our population and we just recycle them into issues that compound on each other.
Right. It's a public safety issue as well. We, as a community in America, we have a very punitive mindset. I mean, we even do it with our children. When our children do something wrong, we either put them on timeout or we take something away from them. We do the same thing to our adults, but we do both. And this sort of treatment that is happening inside, treating people like they're barbaric or like they are outcasted or socially expelling them, if you will, is only reinforcing sort of a sense of worth that I am not included. So why would I get with the rules of the lay of the land if I'm not even included or seen as worthy? There's that particular issue that is very prominent. I always tell people, you know, with 27,000 barriers on a national level of obstacles and barriers that are literally designed to create more obstacles for people coming home from prison, we're not really looking at what type of neighbor we want. We're not asking ourselves, 35,000 people are going to come home. They can absolutely be your neighbor. Do you want them to be great contributing members that has a mindset of helping versus taking and harming? Absolutely. And so there's a certain level of investment, not just resources or money, but in our own way in which we have these discussions, our own way in which we regard people. I say this a lot because I have seen many people say, you made your bed, now you got to lie in it. And that is partly true, but there's some level of recognizing the bed and the cards that are dealt to individuals is also not equitable. Not everyone is given those same cards. And so what is our role as a society? If we can't see each other in each other, if we're only so focused on the mirror, then we're not going to be able to complain about the outcomes in our current state.
Which I think is amazing. Just the idea of seeing ourselves in other people. I do remember my own childhood-ish. I wasn't intending to hurt people, but in a playful, adventurous way, people got hurt. I was, along with a group of other friends, we were held responsible for the impact it had on other people, which we had no idea was going to be negative. But the police officer could either take the three boys that were troublesome and go down to juvenile hall, or he walked us across the street. We sat down at a donut shop, ironically, and he just had this conversation with us. And he just said, look, there's a direction this goes in life. Like, I can do my job and I can bring you and start you in this whole formal process where you've got a record and now you're going to be kind of like fixing what's broken. Or he goes, or you can fix this on the side and I can all drive you home and explain this to your parents and you can live with the incarceration that will come at home, right? From them, or the whole redirection. And I just remember sitting there thinking that not everybody gets this conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes the system just takes you and just runs you through.
So true.
And it was a pause moment in my life when I realized that not intending to hurt people and not trying to get into trouble, it just came naturally. For, some people are just more, and I just remember benefiting from the fact that somebody stopped me and said, hey, what direction are you going? Because this doesn't end well for you guys. And I just remember that was a pivotal part of my life, but it's not a part of everybody's life. They don't have that advocate or that friend that gets them to think about, like, what is the direction you're going? So
Yeah.
Pretty amazed at the fact that we've got to see everybody we meet, see ourselves in their story, and they have to find their story in us as well. We've got to give them a place to where they can aspire to a different kind of person as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, we see such, compared to our international counterparts, we have such a high incarceration rate of our youth. It is the #1 in the world, and it's something that, science is now beginning to shape our laws. We recently had the science report come out 2013 talking about, kids people up to, the age of 25 have not developed a certain part of their brain that covers impulse control and being able to foresee how their decisions lead to poor outcomes. And that is now informing sort of a lot of individuals that are incarcerated to come home as a youth offender. I was one of them. And so being able to, lend great weight to somebody's causative factors around why they committed crime is exactly highlighting the daredevil in you, right? That was a kid. And we see that all the time, having bad results or catastrophic mistakes and
Yeah, the
harm.
joke I always tell people is I have to grow old. I don't have to grow up.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to get there someday.
Please never
Right.
grow up.
Okay. We got some more slides to talk about.
I do. Not only are we talking about sort of our culture and our sort of thought around punishment, but we're talking numbers now. And it costs $133,000 per year to incarcerate someone. And if we want to just talk about like me geeking out on the 35,000 people coming home from prison and the amount of people that will go back to prison based on existing statistics, we're talking about $14 billion in wasted tax money. Because incarceration or threatening for harder, harsher sentences and crimes does not ever serve as a deterrent for incarceration. People do not say, oh, I'm looking at life and I'm gonna now say I'm not gonna do it because I don't want to. Oftentimes people commit crimes when they're emotionally heightened, and we see that correlation. And so there's some other intervention points that we should be doing in our community. If you think about, I'll brag a little bit about how much we've stayed the state of California a little bit later, but these are our real numbers. For me personally, at 15 years, over 1.5 million is what I cost the state of California taxpayer dollars to be incarcerated. And we see this so often. On average, when people recidivate, they go back for, on average, 5 years. And so you can then calculate sort of the dollars that are going into a system that is definitely in need of a rebrand, a refresh, a redesign. What's taking place inside is not necessarily reducing these numbers onto our system. So the solution we found is that it's more than just housing first in the way that we traditionally understood housing first. Housing first says, just put them in housing. 4 walls, roof over their head, they'll be fine. We find that absolutely not to be true. We recognize that not only when you house individuals, but you need to incorporate some additional supportive services and case management in their efforts to reintegrate and adjust to independent living, especially for individuals that are coming out of incarceration. And there's a couple of incarcerated models. For my experience, we were in an 8-person dorm, probably the size of your kitchen. And some of the men prisons are 2-man cells. And so very, very much so the size of your bathroom, right? So we are not necessarily considering how we are shaping and designing housing services for people coming home from prison that need to decompress from whatever it was that they experienced while incarcerated. Like, that's number one. Like, you need to sort of decompress and sort of disintegrate anything that you were currently experiencing inside, and understanding what it is that is going to help you on your transition out of transitional. So we provide rent-free housing, either in a private or semi-private rooms. There's communal living, it's cooking that they have access to, and it's close to transits. We also provide gender-neutral, safe, and secure. One of the issues that we recognized within our reentry system is that the LGBTQ+ community was not included in that design and makeup. You were either going to be assigned to a service provider that either serves females or males, and that's based on the sex you were born with. And that was putting our transgender community at higher risk for homelessness as well. So identifying that, recognizing that, we wanted to make sure we designed our program that is inclusive and chock full of the supportive services.
Plus, the prison systems, the incarceration experiences can be pretty harsh, and you can unlearn a lot of professionalism or respectful behavior. And this gives you a place where you can learn those professional responses, appropriate responses for without being harsh and cruel. It really does help with the learning how to re-interact with the community that's different than the incarcerated environment. Correct?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, all about the pro-social skills. And we really had the idea of thinking about sort of the college design. I mean, your daughter just graduated. Congratulations, right? And she was living on campus, right? And so she's learning how to incorporate some of those life skills into that model. And we're doing the same here. You're living on campus, you're working on campus, you're exercising, you're playing, you're, you know, fueling your mind in our library. You're able to sort of have this all-encompassing place for one-stop shop, whole person care.
That's awesome. Get some more slides for us?
We do.
Excellent.
So our Ready for Life program is what the state of California invested 28.5 million. We originally secured 27 million, and then an additional 1.5 came from Senator Skinner's office. And this allowed us to sort of build out these pillars. Through a 12-month program, our fellows, as we call them, go through 3 months of Leadership for Life, 6 months of Skilled for Life, and the last 3 months is Equipped for Life in tangent with Housed for Life. Leadership for Life is all about sort of breaking down any old beliefs that you may have had instilled in you from incarceration, really building up your confidence and letting you see how much power you actually hold in your future choices. This also includes a lot of our financial literacy and digital literacy. We also have a great partnership with Beneficial State Bank, who helps us set up sort of their second chance banking. All of our fellows receive a $1,000 a month stipend, which a portion goes into their checking. They can spend how they see fit. Another portion goes into their saving, and then setting up them with a secured credit card so that they can begin building credit. So the first pillar is all about sort of getting your vital documents with our reentry team, working with our coaches through that sort of mindset makeover before you choose your career track and you go into Skilled for Life. We have some of our great instructors with us that have taught UX design. We offer tech sales. We offer some healthcare, and I'll go into those a little bit later, and some skilled trades. And so 6 months of training, getting your credentials or certified or what have you, then sets you up for Equipped for Life. And this is where we begin working with our employer partners at getting you secured apprenticeships, internships, and full-time job opportunities. Housed for Life is my favorite, sorry. But I love the fact that we thought about transitioning out of transitions. A lot of providers just don't have the resources or the time to innovate in this way. And this is Pathways to Stable and Permanent Housing, just does not involve helping someone fill out a rental application. It takes a community of leaders coming together to build out a housing, a fair chance housing network. We do that through some of our fair chance housing fairs. We do that through some of our housing pledges. We do this for empowering property managers and landlords on recognizing some of their internal policies that they can change to really see the great tenants that we are providing for them. We also were able to secure some additional funding, which allows them to receive a stipend of up to $12,500 for like first month's deposit, any housing sort of related costs such as furniture and other moving costs as well. And then there's some continued, obviously, credit building, money management training, and so on that goes into our rental assistance program.
That's very cool. So you got these 4 pillars. How many people participating in the program today?
So right now we have had almost 200 people go through our program. And, you know, given that the nature of the Oakland site is actually in-house living, meaning it's on campus, Los Angeles is a little bit different. It's kind of like night school, if you will. People are already full-time working. They already have housing, so they just want a career path. And that's really great for them to go through the entire program, receive all the great supportive services that our program offers as well.
That's amazing. You got a couple hundred people, you got the 4 pillars. What kind of careers are ahead of them?
Yeah, so let's talk about the career tracks. We have sales careers, and this is building in sort of some of the in-demand tech sales opportunities through that expertise and creating sort of the pipeline to CRM tools all the way to customer support training. And this is something that we see a lot of companies, not just tech companies, are incorporating into their sort of workforce. We also have some healthcare roles. This is all about sort of the AOD counseling or substance use disorder facilitators and counselors, peer support specialists. There's a lot of roles in which lived experience is encouraged by the applicants to have to apply. So there's already sort of a fair chance hiring pathway in those careers. And then some of the skilled training. We prepare some of those fellows for transportation, like trucking or HVAC.
That's very cool. So tell us about the individuals themselves. I mean, you got
Yeah.
some recovery, some other service. You have to teach them how to live again, right, in a community where they don't
Yeah.
have basic skills that a lot of folks grow up after college. They learn these things,
I
right?
mean, yeah. Back in 2019, I had the privilege to travel to Finland and Norway and talk to some of their, leaders in the way in which Finland and Norway approach the incarcerated population. And I was just flabbergasted and quite honestly embarrassed myself with the questions I asked because I just found it outlandish in the way in which they naturally thought about their carceral system. And we could definitely learn a couple of things from their learnings. One and what we find here is these are just like standardized. These need to be the standard for reentry support and recovery, all about health and healing, just approaching people in our policies and our practices in a way that really upholds that. The personal leadership coaching, we always find an opportunity for individuals to have a learning experience and also access to mental health. The reason why that's so critical is not only, I mean, any and all of us have experienced life showing up on life terms, which can throw you completely off. You're even more vulnerable when you are formerly incarcerated and not yet fully established in life and stable. So we want to make sure that we provide those access points as well. And then obviously pre and post reentry case management. I talked a little bit about vital documents. If you were incarcerated for 10 years, the DMV forgets you. So you got to start all over. You got to get your birth certificate. You got to get your social security card. And all of those things can take 2 to 12 weeks. So people can't really access a lot of those different public systems and resources. So making sure that we are creating a chock full, robust system that helps people get on their feet fast as possible. Clothing and food stipends we provide, travel vouchers as well, and financial wellness and that credit repair. I've been incorporating that slide all throughout it. So some of the stats I think I talked a little about, almost 200 people have been served. We have a great graduation rate of 64%, which is a lot better than the recidivism rate. And we have 100% housing rate. So one of our fellows, Michelle Scott, quoted, "When I first came home, I could barely navigate a smartphone. Today, I'm designing digital experiences that make technology more accessible for everyone. Cropped helped me see my potential wasn't limited by my past." Such a great quote. We also boast a 85% employment rate. And what we found is that some of what we are teaching people and exposing them to through coaching, to upskilling, to just the sort of the ethos in our program is very transferable skills that come through from our fellows. It is helping them become, very competitive in the workforce and in the marketplace when they are looking for employment. One of our graduates, Patrick McNeil, has left us and went to a great company called Rora. He's now a career agent and sales representative making 86K. So way past our benchmark. Our average wages are 50K. But loving to say that he feels CROP helped me reject the labels and stereotypes meant to keep me from growing by giving me the tools to take ownership of my future. It just always reinforces why we do this work.
I just love the fact these employers give a second chance. And the second chance experience for many of these employers is that these individuals work harder, faster, and longer, and are super loyal to the company because they're proving themselves to be, part of the community. They're committed to it. And I love the fact that it's a win-win for both sides, right? This is a chance where folks that, they have imposter syndrome issues. They don't feel qualified. And oftentimes they are more than qualified for these roles. And the organizations feel like this is a risk, and they find that it's one of the best risks they've ever taken.
You are spot on. Jeff Krasinski, which I'll quote him a little bit later, wrote a book called Untapped Talent, really around the surprising ROI of hiring formerly incarcerated talent. You said it. We stay longer, we work harder, and we promote faster. There's a reason for that, and it's like, if you open the door, just let me walk through it. Let me get my toe in the door, and I'm going to really be able to showcase my skills, my grit, my commitment.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The biggest boast is that we have a 0% recidivism rate. That is something that really, thank you. That is something that really showcases the smaller investment into people upon their landing back into our communities is critical for them to not only become contributing members of our society, but also family reunification, giving back to the workforce, giving back to the community, stimulating our local economy because they're spending their money, and investing in properties and purchasing their own properties to start generational wealth for their families, and really ending the cycle of incarceration. We know that parents, children of parents that are incarcerated have an elevated risk of being incarcerated themselves, and this is where the buck stops. Is like, let's invest in like future generations that are going to supersede all of our life.
Yeah, and this also speaks to your program because not everybody has the same starting point.
That's right.
You've got people all over the space, and your program's able to accommodate for people who have a lot to work with and those who don't.
Yeah.
And you've got to get them enough to find a place where they can be at home and they can be successful.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, this is where I tell people the only thing formerly incarcerated people have in common is that they're formerly incarcerated. Everyone's unique circumstances are unique to their own, which is why it's so important we create an individualized, sort of curated experience for people to meet them where they're at and to get them where they want to be.
Right, so you got to create that plan, personalize it, and then track it for concerning red flags that might be indicators that they're going off plan.
Sure.
And you need to encourage them to come back with some form of accountability and network and friends.
100%.
Which starts to come back, like, can we see ourselves in our brothers and sisters that are coming back from incarceration? Can we just remind them and help them be the best version of themselves every day, right?
100%. And I think some of our reentry service providers sort of look at the slide that I talked about, like the incarceration rates and the problem, as if it's just a systemic issue. And I pause there to say, yes, there's certain systems and design, there's barriers in our laws and our policies that make it a little bit harder. But let's not forget that there's a level of personal accountability that we hold our fellows to when it comes to taking charge of the decisions that they make and not blaming anyone or anything else other than themselves, so that they understand how important self-agency is, accountability is, and how they have the power to step up and do something great if they so choose one.
And leading that to zero for your program is pretty amazing.
I am very proud.
Okay, so here's about the money. So what's in it for us that are one-dimensional characters that all we care about is our spend in the community? How is this helping with our finances? Talk to us about that, right?
Yeah. So on average, it costs us about 60 to 75K per person for the 12-month program. If you sort of look at the longevity of some of our stats and the costs that we see very openly in our state budget. We've already saved the state of California $42 million in taxpayer savings.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because we're dollars are getting shorter at the federal side, so we need to find a way to.
We want to invest that in schools,
There
right?
you go.
So just to quote Jeff Krasinec, he talked a little bit about the inclusion of returning citizens in the workforce is not just a social imperative, but an economic one. These individuals represent a vast and underutilized reservoir of talent that can drive innovation and growth in our economy. We can't do any of this work without our partners. We would love your logo to put up there for sure. And working with a team of people who invest in our success and understand our community mindset is really important. We do not believe we have the end all above all answer, just invest in more programs that look like CROP, but allow us to leverage any of our resources and systems that we're putting in place to scale across the state of California.
And the GEO team and the graph community is very much committed to seeing the world be a better place, getting that knowledge out there, connecting people that are doing some amazing things. We're working towards that. We're working to get that launched and out the door because we want to see more organizations working collaboratively with the challenging situations and their communities to both provide the best services, but also measure outcomes. Like how well are we doing in terms of achieving those goals, not just throwing money at activities and blindly just, accepting the fact that you're going to do the best you can. We want to see that effort and that the efficiencies, and we want to see some of the outcome stuff, right? And that's huge. Building that model, that continuum of care, along with a huge ecosystem of partners that are helping to do that.
Yeah. When I first started going to Sacramento at the Capitol and talked to state legislators, I would ask them, we know exactly how much it costs to reincarcerate someone, $133,000 per year. But no one knows how much it costs to successfully reintegrate someone and not have them go back to prison. We're failing right there. How are we going to allocate resources across our community and properly distribute them? How are we going to disseminate these funds into the proper different buckets? And so that is part of our work is around sort of building out a data and analytics platform where we can centralize our data and really properly inform our elected officials how our state budget should be allocated in partnership with LAO and other elected officials.
And Web3 and blockchain communities are working to establish that standard in the platform to do that. So I'm working on that every day. So you got one more slide for us? So it's all about getting people involved, and you want to tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great benefits for companies and people working with justice involved individuals. There's tax credits and other government incentives. We have finding that, bringing on formerly incarcerated talent really does, impact the bottom line, and you'll see higher productivity rates. There is great evidence that you are all empowered to incorporate non-discriminatory practices within your internal policies. And you can absolutely experience potentially less workforce turnover. So we always say, if you want to know how to implement it, call us. We have some great tools in our little toolbox. We have some trainings. We have some other opportunities. We have a wonderful signature event coming up in September, which will really be able to showcase all of our work and have a really wonderful night of connection and seeing our impact and what we have set out for the future. And we have our partnerships team over here working with the programs and stuff that would love to connect with you if you would like to lean in further to our work.
That's great. We have a community that loves to lean in here. But we also have a lot of folks that are involved with incarcerated individuals, both with the reentry as well as the in-prison care, in-jail care programs. We got lots of folks that are involved in different ways. So I'm sure we got a handful of questions. We got Maggie with a mic. We got myself with the mic, and I will take that over here. And we'll love to ask questions. So keep your hands in the air, and we'll prioritize those so we can get to all of the questions.
Hi. Thank you so much. This is absolutely amazing. So my curiosity was around the services you mentioned that were so dispersed when you came out. Are all of those incorporated into what you're offering to people in your program?
100%.
That's amazing.
So if we are not able to provide sort of high-level supportive services, such as like medical treatment assistance or ADLs or substance abuse on campus, we have connections to other service providers for that care coordination to take place.
And just sorry, one follow-up. How are people coming to you?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. So we created probably one of the most robust outreach plans that we were going to disseminate across the entire state of California, 33 prisons, and we never deployed it. Because the word of mouth in the prison pipeline, it's like the grapevine of all times, spread so quickly across DAPO, which is the Division of Adult Parole Operations, other parole agents, all the prison correctional counselors, that we now have a wait list of over 1,200 people. And that's without ever doing any advertisement. We have some in-prison programming, which we're able to go out and share about our work. But for the most part, we never did any outreach in the way that we originally designed.
Hi there, Tara. Nice to meet you, and congratulations, amazing organization. It seems like both of our organizations are doing similar work, but we're in East Oakland, and we're delivering service for the AB 109 population for Alameda County.
Yep.
And also Contra Costa County.
Yep.
So I think you just answered my question. So you're doing state of California, former, incarcerated individuals.
Yep.
And are you also doing federal prison?
Not at this time.
Okay, so state of California. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So, and how many total units of beds do you have in West Oakland?
Approximately 30.
30. Okay. Yeah, we should talk. I mean, I think it's a good, interesting statistics for some of you in the audience that in the state of California, the AB 109 population is 4% of the reentry population. Right. And 96% of the reentry population is federal and state former incarcerated individuals. So your recidivism rate that you said 0%, is that 1 year or is it 3 year post-release?
To date. So we, because people have graduated as early as 2024, we've been following them up until that point. As more people go on and we continue to sort of work with them in our alumni network, we'll follow them as long as they allow us to.
Okay. Yeah, and I just I'll stop right here. But I think it's interesting too that I'm feeling that it's the same statistics that others should know, is that the recidivism rate within the first 12 months of release is like 54%. And then by the time you get to month 24 or month 36, it actually decreases like to 5% or 8%. So it's that first 12 months that's really critical that,
Very much
we have to keep them.
Yep. I appreciate that. Yeah, AB 109, just to educate, is very restrictive funding that came from what voters did back in 2014 on Proposition 47. It allowed quite a bit of funding to go and invest in what we call the non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenses, which, like you said, is very small population, and yet they have so much funding. We want to tap into it, and yet we have to change some of the laws that allow that to expand to the larger pool of people that we're seeing go back inside.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
Amazing work. It's really cool. I've been, I volunteer in prison. I play basketball in prison. I've been doing that for quite a few years. I'm part of the green team that plays in San Quentin.
Okay.
Now we're going into Solano and Valley State Prison. It's amazing. And now formerly incarcerated guys are going with us, and it's super awesome. Ours is well, it's both. In Valley State Prison we're working with Evolution. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization. They're doing amazing work down in LA and there. But in San Quentin and in Solano, it's with Prison Sports Ministries. It's a faith-based program. And, so my question to you is, how do you work with the faith community, and how do you see, are they very engaged with you? And what value do you see the faith community is bringing, or in your dream world could be bringing?
In our dream world, what they could be bringing is more community members into the narrative change work that we're sort of working with. In my previous role, we worked very closely with the faith-based community, but here at CROP, our doors are open for any and every member of our community to lean in. Again, this is such a vast pool of resources we invest in individuals that it's going to take a community of everyone. One of the things that we found most impactful is a component of our personal leadership development. We found that this isn't just a curriculum that is designed for people that are formerly incarcerated or justice impacted, but that there is value in this sort of empowering curriculum to go into any and every sector, industry, market. From corporate leaders to community leaders to faith-based leaders to individuals in our jail system and our prison system. So I would love to see a world in which we see more supportive services that help people at that intervention point when they are 2 steps away from reincarcerating.
Terah, you're amazing. And we're